of this Savage Nation. Monday's a very easy day in radio if you're really tuned into the news. 24/7, 7 days a week, as I am, and I collect stories over the weekend, ready for Monday. Monday's a very easy day. Friday's a throwaway day for everyone in the business. You know, the open mic thing, and then everyone then slogs through Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, hoping for an earthquake or a fire or a plane crash. But short of an earthquake, a fire, or a plane crash, we have the crash of a wonderful nation. We have an out-of-control, narcissistic emperor running the country who goes to England and meddles in their affairs because he's no longer satisfied with controlling everyone in America. He now has to control the English as well, who want to leave the EU because they know what it's done to them. They don't want to be overrun by Muslims from the Middle East or Africans who are claiming asylum. And they want to leave the EU because a group of unelected dictators are running the EU. Now, we're going to depart at that juncture. Unelected dictators are running the European Union. Unelected. Remember who the EU is. It's the new Soviet Union. But instead of doing it with cattle prods and retraining camps and secret police, they're doing it in many other ways, as Obama's been doing it here with his minions of fascists. But notice I said that the EU is run by a group of unelected delegates. Delegates. You can call them delegates. You can call them appointees. A secret ballot is run by those who control Europe and the world. Soros, say the Bilderbergs, if you want to have a popular term, and they elect who runs the EU. There's no popular vote. So now here in America, some pseudo-conservative media figures are now nullifying the people's right to choose a candidate with the corrupt delegate system. I want to throw plain logic at this. And I want you Trump haters and I want you Cruz haters to stop for a minute and think. I want you to stop hating and I want you to start thinking. Let's go back to when the Tea Party became popular. Wasn't the Tea Party the very personification of bypassing or overthrowing such a rigged delegate system which bypasses the people's vote? Don't we all agree that congressmen and senators who deny the will of the people are corrupt? How many times have we yelled and screamed that, wait a minute, we didn't want that. We voted for Prop 209 in California. It was overturned by one rotten, stinking judge, Felton Henderson, a filthy, degenerate lawyer who was put into the ACLU, who then overrode the votes of 6 million Californians. This is what started the entire revolution in the political system. And so what happened was we elected conservative senators and congressmen who were then nullified by John Boehner and whatever his name is, the gobbler. I forget the guy from Kentucky, who once he got the coal bailout from Obama, he shut his mouth and he went along with the program, McConnell. So Boehner and McConnell overrode the people we put in. How in the world, when you see this going on with Boehner and McConnell overriding the will of the people, how is it that you see judges stepping on our will, as I just explained to you? How then can Ted Cruz pretend to be a people's candidate when he runs around the nation buying delegates and arguing against the popular vote? But more than Ted Cruz, who is another politician in a long line of politicians, how can you people be duped into believing that you don't want to vote? Now, I see people argue, that's a delegate system. It's been around since 1801. So now you're arguing against yourself. The very thing that you argued for, you're now arguing against. This is one man's opinion, my friends. And I know you can twist it any way you want. But, you know, if you live in a nation where the vote matters, then the vote should matter. What is the point of having people wait 3 hours in the cold or the rain or the sun to go and vote if their vote is then overridden by a group of apparatchiks appointed by the power structure in any state? How can you call for that? Does this mean that Donald Trump is the ideal, perfect conservative candidate? Absolutely not. Let me be very clear. Donald Trump is a social liberal. We all know that. There's no mystery about it. However, I told you on the issues that are most important to the survival of America, from my point of view, which are borders, language, and culture, he's the only candidate who can defeat the monstrous choice on the other side, and it will be Hillary Clinton, who will destroy this nation once and for all. What she will do here is what Merkel has done to Germany. She has criminalized any criticism of her. She has criminalized any criticism of her bringing in 1 million Syrian Muslims and Africans, destroying Germany's culture, because she's a lifetime Eastern European communist who has been laying in wait for years. That dough-faced monster, that oven-stuffing monster, laid in wait for years as the Bolshevik she is. And when the time was ripe, she did it to Germany. She did something no one could ever expect to have been done. She criminalized political opinion. Now, we're very close to having political opinion criminalized in this country. It started, of course, with the emperor, who has no clothes. To most of us who have brains, the emperor has no clothes. To those listening to the show who have no brains, the emperor has beautiful clothing. But those of us who know what a dictator is see it in Barry Soetoro from Honolulu or wherever you want to say he's from. It doesn't matter where he came from. All we know is what he has done. And so on that opening, I think we now have to go to the First Lady, who's at it again. After all, it's the season of college speeches, and after her junket to South America on a second Air Force One, abusing a taxpayer with 72, or is it 74 personal assistants, here she is again, playing victim once again, the very thing that got her and Barry to where they are, running the world, again claiming victim because, well, you know the reason. She's an oppressed minority. Listen to her now on the Savage Nation.
We pay endless attention to folks who are blocking action, blocking judges, blocking immigration, blocking a raise in the minimum wage, just blocking.
Poor
we are
girl.
Consumed with the anger and vitriol that are bubbling up with folks shouting at each other, using hateful and divisive language.
What is she doing here but yelling and screaming?
There's countless times when that language gets personal and is directed at my husband.
My husband, if you're president.
That he doesn't love our country. The time he was called a liar in front of a joint session of
let's stop right here. Here is the most divisive, hateful woman in the history of the First Lady. In my lifetime, I've never heard anything like this. Screaming, yelling, putting out the big lie over and over again. And she's lamenting people blocking her husband. Not blocking the president. I hope you heard what she just said. Blocking my husband. Not blocking the president. Her husband. It's very personal with her. See, they're running the world, and you can't criticize her husband. After all, he's not the president. He's her husband. But I raise a bigger question. She says that they're blocking her husband. She said blocking. She left the G off the end. I guess she was speaking to a certain audience. But this is the First Lady who speaks perfect English, doing what Hillary Clinton does, which is breaking into a vernacular for the audience, saying that people are blocking her husband. Can anyone listening to the show tell me what the emperor has not gotten? I mean, I know that the emperor's gotten everything he's wanted so far, but tell me what the husband, or the president, if you want to put it that way, tell me what it is that he has wanted that he's been blocked from. Well, let's see. The First Amendment still stands. So in that regard, yes, Michelle, we have been blocking your husband. Yeah, we still like our First Amendment over here. Let's see. Second Amendment. Yeah, we've been blocking your husband from taking our guns. Yeah, you're right about that, Michelle. Got to give you credit on that. Yeah, we've been blocking them on 1 and 2. Now let's go down the rest of the amendments and see what else he's been blocked. Oh, judges. Yeah, the dictator wanted to stick a stooge into the Supreme Court after the strange death of Antonin Scalia, which is interesting, by the way, to this day. All of the stooges in the media never raised the issue of the strange death of Antonin Scalia, who I believe, wait a minute, I'm sure actually, had no autopsy. They rushed him into a crematoria and atomized his body, so you couldn't do an autopsy. But wasn't Prince given an autopsy because he died under strange circumstances on that airplane? As I said to you when it occurred, you don't have to be a genius to figure out what he died from. Remember? People got mad at me for saying it. What did I need, a degree in detective engineering to know what a singer on an airplane died of? I had to figure out it was drugs? 2 days it took them. Oh, there may have been drugs. We don't know. Oh, Lord, hallelujah. Cover it up. Just cover up the rampant sick drug use in the entertainment business, because that violates, the protocols of the elders of Hollywood. So there we are, my friends. That's just the beginning. That's the warm-up. Now, in order to keep your attention, because many of you have the attention of a sand flea in the media today. I realize that. You want to be entertained and regaled every second, or the hand goes to another dial. I want to show you what else is coming today. First Lady targets Mississippi religious freedom bill in commencement speech. Elephant poachers kill rangers. Wound Swedish park manager in Congo. Driven up the wall by Trump. Mexico looks to recast image in U.S. Here's a good one. San Francisco torn as some see street behavior worsen. Mesothelioma racket exposed. Columbia University is involved with it. You know how I've warned you about immigrants and epidemics for years? It's what I started in this business with. Well, a secret report just came out for Judicial Watch, which showed that inside the CDC, scientists were warning each other of the TB and other diseases that immigrants were carrying and to protect themselves while lying to the American public. Let's see. Globalist in chief tips his hand in London. Let's see. Tens of thousands of people are calling for a Target boycott over the toilet thing. Let's see. In the second hour, we're going to talk about the green gangsters in America with two expert ladies, women, who have done years of work in the trenches in exposing the green gangs and the green gangsters who've stole billions of dollars. I found their work over the weekend. I posted it on the bottom left of my website, michaelsavage.com, so you can donate money to these incredible ladies. They're amazing women. And we're going to talk about those topics, including my day yesterday in San Francisco, because I know what's going on in the city in ways that you can't imagine. I'll tell you about a walk around the Embarcadero area, how the police ignore all problems except, let us say, out-and-out deaths. They come with a body bag. Or if a deranged individual, I don't blame them. I will tell you about the madness of what's going on in the streets, the filth, the dirt. The bums are out of control. And how I went aboard the Golden Bear yesterday down on the pier. Many of you don't know what the Golden Bear is, but you're going to find out about Michael Savage goes aboard the Golden Bear. Right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUI-COIN. Logic now gone out the window. Why did you become a conservative? Why did you identify suddenly with the Tea Party 5-6 years ago? Wasn't it because the system was rigged against conservatives? Wasn't it because no matter who you put in power, they were overriding it? So you said, well, I had enough of that. I want a real conservative. And so you became an activist, let's say, in the Tea Party or elsewhere. So now, how can you support the opposition now and say, I don't care what the people think in Colorado. We have the delegate system. It's the system in place, and you should follow it. It makes no sense whatsoever. And if you think that you are being logical in saying that, then you need your head examined. Then you better go to a doctor who understands how when you lie to yourself over and over again, you start to think it's the truth. If a system is screwing the people, then the system is wrong. Do you understand that? And that's what this entire, shall I use the word, social upheaval is that we're living through in America. There's a social upheaval going on in the United States of America. Many of us don't even know our place or what our place will be in 5 years or 10 years because of the monster in the White House. I'll get very personal. If you think I'm alone, you're crazier than you can imagine. He's a monster. You know, there was a New Yorker cartoon when they were running for the presidency, the two of them, that showed her, the First Lady, as Angela Davis with two bandoliers with ammo on it. And he was seen in a fez or some such Muslim garb. And the New Yorker ran it as a parody of what conservatives thought of them. But now, 7.5 years later of this Emperor and the Empress, I don't think that cartoon in the New Yorker was so far from the point of reality. They are running this country as though they're radicals who don't answer to anybody. And they're so sure of their absolute power that the meddler went over to Europe and tried to scare the Brits into not leaving the EU because it would upset the entire plan of those who put Obama in office. The secret hands that selected him from nowhere. Remember, he was an unknown senator. No one ever heard of him. A little-known senator all of a sudden was foisted upon us, and did he have some smooth game. Now, of course, had whatever his name is not laid down for him after the first debate, I forget his name, Romney. Had Romney continued to be the man that he pretended to be, he could have wiped the floor with Obama in all three debates. The first debate, Obama looked like a child who was caught with his pants down in the wrong place at the wrong time. He couldn't answer a question. He stumbled. He mumbled. He was totally unprepared for that debate. Romney crushed him. And then Romney was called in by the same people who are trying to crush Trump right now, the Republican National Committee. The same people have rigged the delegates, and they said to Romney, you got to take a fall. You got to lay down because we don't want you to win. We had the presidency for 8 years. It's time for a Democrat. And Romney did what he was told. Do you understand how the game works? There is no election. And that's why there's such distemper now towards Trump from the Republican National Committee. They don't want an outsider. They'd rather have Hillary Clinton, as I told you, before anybody else. It's well known. It's established. Now, one of the Koch brothers comes out, K-O-C-H, hard name to pronounce, and says he'd rather have Hillary as president, more or less, than any of the Republican candidates. What does that tell you about the corruption of our system and why this revolution that is going on must continue to be a revolution in order for us to have any semblance whatsoever of the people's will?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
I think it's fair to say that maybe some point down the line there might be a UK-U.S. trade agreement, but it's not going to happen anytime soon because our focus is in negotiating with a big bloc, the European Union, to get a trade agreement done. And UK is going to be in the back of the queue, not because we don't have a special relationship, but because given the heavy lift on any trade agreement, us having access to a big market with a lot of countries rather than trying to do piecemeal trade agreements is hugely inefficient.
Inefficient. What a great word that is. Stalin was a man who was very efficient. Hitler was an extremely efficient politician. Watch out for the efficiency experts in high places. So here he is in England using the word Q, of course, for the local audience. Most Americans don't know what that means. And then he defends removing the Winston Churchill bust from the Oval Office. Oh, yeah. Listen to clip 8. Your president.
I love Winston Churchill. Love the guy. Now,
love the guy?
When I was elected as President of the United States, my predecessor had kept a Churchill bust in the Oval Office. And I thought it was appropriate, and I suspect most people here in the United Kingdom might agree, that as the first African-American president, it might be appropriate to have a bust of Dr. Martin Luther King in my office to remind me of all the hard work of a lot of people who would somehow allow me to have the privilege of holding this office.
Well, there it is. He admits that he removed Winston Churchill's bust from the Oval Office. If you want to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. That's the credo of the Marxists. So in that sense, this is correct. And Boris Johnson was right when he referred to him as a Kenyan who was anti-imperialist. Boris Johnson raged. You don't know who he is. Boris Johnson is a man who may be the next prime minister of England. He mocked the U.S. president's claim that Anglo-U.S. trade would be hit hard by Brexit. In other words, he resented Obama coming there and warning the Brits, how dare they do what they want? How dare they vote on leaving the European Union when Obama knows what's best for the Brits? You know, there's a lot of stuff going on. They really hate him, in other words. The British people look right through him. They know the king has no clothes. So the article, Boris Rage at Ridiculous Weird Obama, came out over the weekend. So they're on to him, but you're not on to him. That's the problem. Then the First Lady was at Jackson State University, Mississippi, when she changed her highly educated syntax to meet that of the audience. She went from blocking to blockin'. I don't know why. I thought you're supposed to be a role model at a commencement speech and teach students how to speak correctly. So you would think that instead of saying blocking, you'd say blocking. And then she talks about how much anger and vitriol, and we shouldn't shout. Well, she's screeching and yelling, angry. She's doing exactly what she says shouldn't be done. And she calls the president my husband instead of referring to him as the president. It's unbelievable to me what they get away with. But then nothing's unbelievable to me in a country run by Wolf Blitzer and all of the other reindeer of St. Nick. On Blitzer, on Prancer, on Dancer. They're like the reindeer, pulling the sleigh for the North Pole guy. KSFO Kim, you're a first up on the Savage Nation. What's your topic?
As you talk to the conservatives about our loss of autonomy and how little our vote may actually matter, you're not only talking to the conservatives, you know that you have a lot of liberals who listen to as well. And a lot of what you say permeates our mind as well. And you're wrong if you think that there aren't liberals and Democrats that are extremely worried about the same things that you're talking about. This is
Well, wait, when did I say that I didn't think there were liberals who were worried about it?
You didn't. You never did.
I did. What I said was the progressives don't want us to have any voice in our government because they're fundamentally fascists. The progressive is a code word for people who want you to do what they want without any interference, period. The true liberal, I think you're referring to yourself as one, is the person who would have said 50 years ago, I may disagree with you, but I would fight for the death your right to say it. Is that how you identify as a liberal?
Exactly.
Well, there are none of you left. You can count them on probably, how many could you be left in America of the true liberal, the classical liberal, who understood what it really meant? How many do you think are really left in this country?
Michael, there's a lot, but they are too chicken by the media. A lot of us, like you say, are sheeple, and they're afraid to stand up and say, I disagree with this. This is a Democrat.
Right, let me give you a test then. Over the weekend, did you happen to go to a Passover Seder with any Jewish friends?
No, my brother's Jewish, but how's that?
I'm asking you, did you go to a Seder or a party with liberals? Let's put a Seder aside. Were you around any liberal cohorts over the weekend?
No.
Did you go to any social gathering over the weekend?
I did.
You did. Did you discuss politics at all?
No.
That's interesting. Well, I know someone who went to a Seder over the weekend, and they were all very wealthy people, by the way. I will not say where. And this individual is extremely conservative, more than I am. And he was appalled at the bigotry of the liberals. All they talked about was gay marriage. That's all that was on their mind. Nothing, no other issue. Not national security, not radical Islam, not the broken border, not immigrants with epidemics. Nothing. All they cared about were transgender toilets. And these are people who consider themselves to be intelligent. Now, if you were to look into New York's liberal community or progressive community, you'd find the same exact mentality. Anyone who disagrees with them, think of Woody Allen at a social gathering or Larry David. I can't figure what a female might look like who is with them, but imagine a woman, imagine Woody Allen in drag or Larry David in drag, since we're all into transgenders these days, imagery. Try to imagine Larry David in a dress and a wig with lipstick. That would be a female progressive. That if you dared disagree with her, she would hit you with a rolling pin. I'm giving a stereotype. I'm using cartoon-like phraseology in order to reach you out there. I know how to reach people. It's my specialty. It's called mass communications. Don't tell me how to speak, if you don't mind. I love people who say, oh, he's too this, he's too that. I am an expert in mass communications. I don't have to go to college to learn how to communicate to the masses. I've done it for 22 years. This is called mass communication. Sometimes I use language that is a caricature, verbal caricatures of the kind of drawings you would have seen in Victorian English newspapers to make a point. Do you get it? Okay, so now picture Larry David in drag. That's a female progressive. Or if you don't know who he is, and many of you don't, think of Woody Allen with a wig and high heels and lipstick. That's a female progressive, what she would look like. Now imagine disagreeing with that female at a cocktail party in Manhattan somewhere and what she would say and do in order to make you feel small or think she's making you feel small as she did 5 husbands ago. You know, to all the men around her who she reduced to nothingness, made them feel smaller than can be. And now let's move on. I think we've covered the waterfront on that. Shall I tell you about San Francisco? Let me go to that. Okay, here's a little article from the New York Times today. Here's the obtuse headline written by Pinchy Sulzberger's minions, who's going to lay off another 500 people at the old York Times. Sad, really, they're nice people. They deserve a tenured job at the New York Times to write their tripe. Okay, San Francisco torn as some see street behavior worsen. I don't know what the headline meant. I have no idea what it means, so I had to read it. So she talks about the crookedest street in town, Lombard Street, which only tourists drive on. I avoid it like the plague. And they're talking about a Thai tourist who was shot dead on that little tourist street. Very picturesque, looks like a postcard, because the poor Thai tourist resisted thieves taking his camera. No one ever says what the thieves look like, by the way. Thieves. But now it's become a high-crime neighborhood, and cars are broken into. Property crime is up 60% since 2010 when liberals completely seized power in Nancy Pelosi's backyard. 60% jump in property crime? What does that mean? San Francisco, according to the FBI, has the highest per capita property crime rate of the nation's top 50 cities. This is one of the dirty little secrets of this picture postcard city by the bay. Half the cases are thefts from vehicles, smash and grabs that scatter glittering broken glass onto the sidewalks. So what happened here is you've got psychopathic liberals in San Francisco who argue that you can't crack down on these poor, unfortunate people who are breaking windows and cars and stealing everything they can get their hands on. They have a right to be on the streets, and you have to have a tolerance for them in this wonderful city. And the sickest of them all, in my estimation, is a deranged maniac supervisor by the name of Campos, who says, we're not going to criminalize people for being poor. That criminalization is only going to make it harder for them to get out of poverty. Now, have you ever heard anything as insane? You have to live here to appreciate the deliciousness of this insanity. And this man is not hospitalized, by the way. This is not coming from a hospital bed where the individual saying it is on Thorazine or whatever class of antipsychotics they're using today. He is actually walking around in a suit and tie in City Hall. And he says, we're not going to criminalize people for being poor. No. We have to tolerate them. So now you understand. So yesterday I'm walking around. It was so unbelievable. I'll tell you about it in a minute. I'll tell you about the Golden Bear and what I mean by that and who I saw aboard those wonderful ships. It's an interesting thing. What is the Golden Bear? Well, the Golden Bear. Well, can I tell you the story now? Or you want to stick to the cruise and Trump and delegates and schmelegates and delegates and transgenders and toilets? I haven't even gotten to the big stories yet about the gangsters in the mesothelioma business. You ever see those ads every minute? Are you a poor sufferer of mesothelioma? Wait till you hear about the criminal lawyers and politicians, one of whom was in the Slammer for 20. Mr. Silva, Sheldon Silva from New York, was a big mesothelioma gangster. Wait till you hear who else is in that one, including Columbia University. Oh, yeah. Oh, those clean, pristine deans at the universities. Wait till you hear what they're doing with the rackets of steering customers for that one. So anyway, I'm in my apartment in the city. I was all day in the city, and I looked down on the wharf, and I saw beautiful old, I thought it was a Matson liner coming in, but it looked cleaner. And then, so no, that's the California State University Maritime Academy ship, the Golden Bear. So I took a walk down the Embarcadero. I had to block my ears with earplugs because there were gangs racing motorcycles and people drag racing up and down the Embarcadero. I called the police and I said, you've got to do something. They're going to kill somebody. They were doing pop wheelies on motorcycles on a crowded street. They were drag racing on a crowded street. I said, you got to stop them. No one did anything. The cops didn't come out because it wasn't a real crime. They don't come out for anything except a body bag. They're good. They have body bags in San Francisco. I don't blame them. They can't do their job because if they did job, they'd be arrested or chastised by that fool Campos and the other liberal psychotics who have destroyed the quality of life in the city. Continued on my walk, and there it was, the ship, and he said, well, what is this? Well, with the Golden Bear, we're going on a 60-day cruise for the new graduates from the California Maritime Academy. Well, I'll tell you more about it later in a few minutes. The important point about it is not that I went aboard later and had a free beer. That's not the main point. The point is that this ship is actually part of the California State University system. part of the Maritime Academy, where young men and women learn how to drive ships. Do you know this? Cal Maritime joined the California State University in 1995. And many of the young people that I saw there, they were all Americans, by the way. There were no foreigners. There were no foreigners whatsoever. All Americans. Whites, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, all American boys and women. All of them. Every one of them was an American. I said, how come you don't have any foreigners running in the school? He said, it's against the law. I said, what law? And he told me the name of the law that prohibits foreigners from working in our merchant marine, and it goes back to World War II. I said, you better keep it real quiet, because if the emperor or his wife hear about it, he'll overturn that law to make sure that illegal aliens can be running our merchant marine in the very near future before he outsources the U.S. Navy itself. This is the Savage Nation. Be here.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. All right, I'm going to turn off the Hallmark Card song by Tony. This dirty city. Beautiful, still beautiful. They haven't been able to destroy the sky yet. The streets are filled with garbage, filth. There's no street cleaning. Bums defecate in the street. They shoot needles up in front of children. You see needles hanging out of their arm. Oh, I'm not making it up. That's because it's a consequence-free zone. That's because the supervisors are all psychotic, fake liberals. A customer who came to have a broken window fixed, meaning they broke into his car, smashed his window, Dan Edmonds Waters, showed San Franciscan forgiveness. He said he felt sorry for whoever broke a window of his limited edition BMW twice, stealing his gym bag both times. The idiot said, I have a lot of sympathy for folks who are in need in the city, Mr. Edmonds Waters said. This has become an extremely expensive city to live in, and the divide between those who have and those who don't is ridiculously ginormous. And so, again, the libs, they feel, I guess they're glad when they come back to their BMW and see the glass all over the street. I guess it's their way of they feel that they've given a tithing in a church. Since they don't go to church anymore, now I see it from the progressive point of view. A broken BMW window that the insurance company pays for is nothing to them. In the old days, they would have gone to church and given money to the poor. Now they let the bums break their window and steal their laptop. It's a tithing. That's the price of living in San Francisco. Anyway, that's just one of the little observations here on the program. What do you want to talk about? Liberalism. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not bashing liberals today. Let's go to Frank on I can't, out of time. How did that hour go so fast? And I haven't even done 9 of the 10 stories I mentioned. And by the way, the best new television show is not the one I'm going to mention. It's called, I forget his name, that guy, that bad comedian who everyone ever heard of. Dice, the worst show ever made. There's a new show by with Andrew Dice Clay. The worst television show ever launched in the history of television is the show called Dice. I'll tell you why on the Savage Nation when you come back to listen to me right here.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Blue Monday, how are you, Blue Monday? Got to work like a
It is hour number 2 this Monday of the Savage Nation. Why am I so cheerful? I better look into that. Got to be careful when you get too cheerful, because it means the next day you're going to be depressed. Anyway, here we are. So we're talking about, does your vote matter? Of course not. Did it ever matter? I doubt it. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe it's all been a sham. Democracy. We're a free republic. Let's have a democracy. Okay, yeah, let's overthrow the British. Sure. Next thing you wake up and the Brits are running America. in a corrupt system may as well be running America. What's the difference? King may as well be running America. But anyway, yesterday I enjoyed the day. I mean, the sky is still blue. The clouds are still white. The food is still good, sort of. Not in San Francisco anymore. You can't get a decent meal almost anywhere. I've never seen anything like it. So after I was on the Embarcadero yesterday, as I said, and after I visited the Golden Bear, the Cal Maritime Academy training ship, which I haven't really, explained enough. Maybe another time. I saw the cream of the crop of young men and young women who are training to actually do something instead of studying meaningless subjects. They can actually drive a ship. They get degrees in engineering. It was like America all over again. I walked back along the Embarcadero, and I stopped in a restaurant I used to eat in, but I haven't been in there for a long time. In the vicinity, let's put it to you that way, along the Embarcadero. We'll leave it at that. Let's put it to you this way. The shrimp I normally order, $18 for 4 of them, were raw. They were not cooked. I said, I'm in a rush. Oh, yeah, how you doing, Mike? I said, make them well done. They came out half cooked. I don't eat raw shrimp. I don't know about you, but I generally like not to eat raw shrimp. I had also ordered fish. That was $30. So first the shrimp came. They weren't ready. I sent them back. Then the fish came, and it was pink in the middle. I said, I don't eat fish that's pink in the middle. I tend not to enjoy the taste of pinworms for lunch. And they looked at me like there was something wrong with me. What, you don't like pink fish, uncooked fish in the middle? That's the tradition now from the idiots that come out of cooking school. Everything has to be a certain way, which is uncooked food. I don't know if you know it, but raw fish and raw shellfish can kill you. And most of you probably have parasites in your system from eating the Nouvelle cuisine that originated in San Francisco, incidentally. But $30 for a piece of fish that was maybe 3 ounces? I said to myself, what's the difference? Now you know why McDonald's is booming in America. At least you get something you can eat. Obama marches armed forces leftward. Now let me go to my website. It's called michaelsavage.com. On the right, there's an article from Washington Times, The Washington Times. Obama marches armed forces leftward. If you see what he's done to the military, you'll look like the Frenchman who was seen crying when the Nazis invaded Paris and marched through the Arc de Triomphe. Muslim migrants in Germany chant Adolf Hitler and Allahu Akbar. Oh, yeah. All of the peaceful Muslims that Angela Merkel, the oven-stuffing Bolshevik, have brought in, they were chanting Adolf Hitler and Allahu Akbar. Border Patrol sees increase in number of migrants being detained at Mexican border. Well, I don't think we should have a border. We have to be like what Obama wants, is the North American Union, where this is sort of an appendage of Mexico. We don't need one of those darn walls. Diseases Without Borders. On the top left is my great book, Teddy and Me, Confessions of a Service Human. Don't get me started on that, because this weekend I got so mad at him, I started cursing at the walls. I said, what do you think I am, a service human? That's after I wrote the book, Confessions of a Service Human. I felt like one. First I wrote it as kind of a friendly, thing, and then I realized there was nothing but a service human. He was running my life. I got mad at him. It's like the Odd Couple. It's 12 years together with a dog. You become like it was like the Jack Lemmon thing. I didn't know who was on first. I hurt his feelings, though. Oh, and Poodle sulk, man. 2 days he wouldn't talk to me. Like he'd come home and he'd look the other way. They sulk. They're just amazing. The only good thing about dogs as opposed to women is they can't sue you. They can't take half your property and bring a lawsuit against you. Other than that, it's very similar. Confessions of a Service Human. Here's another nice one for those of you who think that mesothelioma. You got to see this article. Mesothelioma racket exposed. Columbia University is named in it. You got to see these articles in the New York Post. There was a guy in New York named Sheldon Silva. Ooh, don't talk to me that way. It's you know what? If you touch me, I'm going to... So this guy marched around Mr. Religion, Sheldon Silva. He ran the state like a fiefdom, like a cash register. He received $3 million. Well, he received a lot of money from law firms connected to the whole mesothelioma racket. He would steer clients. You'll see all the names if you want to look at it, if you're interested in New York. Oh, and those of you who think that somehow Muslims are more tolerant of you because you're gay and you have no idea what you're talking about, LGBT magazine editor hacked to death in Bangladesh. That comes from the right-wing Reuters. That's a sarcastic remark. Reuters is left as it gets. Headline, LGBT magazine editor hacked to death in Bangladesh. Oh, yeah, it's very tolerant. Let's see. I don't want to bring up the bathroom issue because I know what's going to happen. I can't bring up the toilet issue. I know that's all you're going to call about. I won't do it. Psycho riles Brits. That was my headline on my Facebook for Saturday. Psych-O riles Brits. I thought that was a nice use of phraseology. Here's another one. Pope dumps Christians for Muslims. What's with this Pope? He wouldn't bring in any Christians. He left them stranded in the Middle East. They'd taken only Muslims. What is he, crazy? Okay, whatever. For those of you interested in sex, here's one. Why Victoria's Secret can't sell sex to millennials. Okay, you can't talk about that. Don't call on that. It's ridiculous. U.S. suicide rate soars 80% for middle-aged white women. Woo. Things aren't panning out the way people expect. That's a sad one. Here's one that I think we can talk about. The mafia declares war on all Muslims in Sicily. That's from Shubat.com. It caught me off guard for a couple of reasons. And, well, read the article. The mafia declares war on all Muslims in Sicily and promises to drive them off of the island by any means necessary. By Andrew Bizad. Looks like Muhammad and his followers just got made an offer they can't refuse if they are smart. For years it was rumored that Cosa Nostra, the 'Ndrangheta, and other Sicilian and Calabrian gangs were involved in helping Muslims travel to Sicily and then Italy for a fee. And now with the manufactured refugee crisis, he writes, Sicily has been completely overrun by African and Pakistani Muslims who are now forming their own gangs and attacking the locals. The worst is in Palermo, one of the mafia centers of Sicily. This is an interesting story. And what happened here is one of the largest crime organizations in the world, according to this guy, brought in the refugees because they were greedy and corrupt. They didn't care about their nation. Sound very much like some people in the green rackets. Didn't care at all about the nation. Just wanted to cash in. And now that the people they brought in have formed their own gangs and threatening their business, they're threatening war against migrants on the island of Sicily because 1,000 new ones are pouring onto Sicily every week. The article goes on. The feared Cosa Nostra are desperate to maintain supremacy after African crime gangs arrive with the migrants and they are engaged in a deadly turf war. An innocent Gambian man was shot through the head by an assassin in broad daylight, sparking fears of a wider bloodbath. Mayor Leoluca Orlando told Mail Online, Palermo is no longer an Italian town. It is no longer European. You can walk in the city and feel like you're in Istanbul or Beirut. You hear this? So everything that they did for money, for greed, is now coming back to haunt them. Immigration to Italy soared by 90% in the first 3 months of the year. The migrant population in Bolaro, the part of Palermo where the shooting took place, has risen from approximately 5 to 25% since the so-called migrant crisis began. The mayor of Palermo, Leoluca Orlando, said, in the past when the mafia was more powerful, it prevented any immigrants from entering the city. Until I was 30 years old, I never saw an African or Asian in Palermo. The mafia, he says, has not understood that the city has changed. We're now a city of immigrants, and the mafia bosses no longer sit in the mayor's chair. Palermo is now a Middle Eastern town in Europe. It is a mosaic city. So now there's a mafia migrant war that began after African immigrant gangs apparently entered the country alongside law-abiding migrants and started to operate on the mafia's doorstep. Mobsters are now claiming that the police are targeting their activities by leaving African gangs alone. In the words of Michael Corleone, it's time to settle a family business. All right, it's all on Shubat.com, no calls. Everyone's on the Easter vacation. Is there another holiday for the children, the Ritalin kids? I see children everywhere in the streets in the middle of the week. The Adderall kids are still home. They're away somewhere. There's no snow in this. It snowed and then it melted. Where are they? And there were no calls. I'll admit it. Normally I'm jammed with calls. And you know why I'm not jammed with calls? Because I didn't ask you a silly question. Like, are you for or against transgenders in a toilet? Don't call. I won't take one call on a toilet thing. I will not do it. If I asked you once, if I said to you, do you think transgender in the toilet? That's it. Bingo. The lines light up for 3 hours. Autopilot. I'm not going to do it. Here's another couple of stories. It's just the bottom I generally don't change enough. MTV features Michael Savage, the talk radio godfather of Trumpomania, an open letter to Michael Savage, how both parties have abandoned the working class and how we can help. New York Times features Savage as leader of talk radio. Was Scalia murdered? No one cared. Listen to no one praise my straight talk guide. Michael Savage says, I'm the architect of Trump's message. That's there. Here's how you can listen to the Savage Nation. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk about green gangsters with two ladies, women, who have done amazing work for years exposing the gangs in America who have cashed in on the green game. If you want to sign up for the Savage Nation's free daily newsletter, you can click on it on michaelsavage.com. It's free. If you want to check out Teddy and Me, Confessions of a Servicehuman, you can click pre-order now. You could buy one for your wife, your daughter, your niece, your nephew. You could buy it for Father's Day, Mother's Day, buy it for Others Day. I'm going to start a new holiday called Others Day. Since there's Mother's Day, and so we now live in an inclusive America, I think I now declare that from now on, the 25th of April will be known as Others Day. It's a day you send a card or flowers or something like that to someone you don't even know who's different than you, to show how inclusive you are. You can pick anyone you know who's not like you, and it's called Others Day. You can send them flowers. You could send them candy. You could send them anything you want, a book, Teddy and Me. We're calling it Others Day. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth and financial future. Call 1-800-289-2646. I think people went to sleep. Since the vote was stolen from them in Colorado, I think people stopped listening to, they don't care anymore. They know it doesn't matter. It's all a scam. That the election is about selection, not election. And they know that Obama is an emperor without clothes. And they feel the next one will be an emperor without clothes. So people just don't care about politics anymore. Obama wrongfully attributes presidential term limits. He made a clown of himself in England. The people really were angry at him. Okay, let's listen to Obama for a minute. He was over in England trying to tell him, how dare you vote to get out of the EU? Who do you think you are? You think you live in a place where your vote matters? So here's talking about folks now in clip 13, your president, Michelle's husband. Let's hear 13.
People are unsettled by globalization. And although trade has brought enormous benefits to many of our countries that have been engaged in trade, although typically jobs that are produced from exports have higher wages and better benefits than those that are not involved with the export market.
What did he just say? Does anyone know what he said? He sounds like a talk show host who won't take sides on the Trump Cruz thing. I don't know what he just said. So listen to 14. Maybe it makes sense in 14.
People visibly see a plant moving and jobs lost, and the narrative develops that this is weakening rather than strengthening the position of ordinary people and ordinary workers.
Listen to the absurdity of what this clown just said. He is probably the stupidest man in the history of the... I never saw anything like this. People visibly see a plant moving and jobs lost, and the narrative develops that this is weakening rather than strengthening the position of ordinary people. In other words, let's say you lost a job in Toledo. That's only a narrative to this clown who never worked a day in his life. Everything was given to him and Michelle. They were ushered into these positions of power, and so they see you, the little guy out there who lost a job, or a woman working 3 jobs to raise a child the right way. You lose your job, and people visibly see a plant moving and jobs lost, and the narrative develops. Again, distant third party. Everything's distant from him. Nothing's real to him. Listen to it again if you think that I don't know what I'm talking about. Clip 14.
People visibly see a plant moving and jobs lost, and the narrative develops that this is weakening rather than strengthening the position of ordinary people and ordinary workers. and it's forcing them to compete with low-wage labor. And that, I think, is what drives a lot of suspicion, understandably, of these trade deals.
Suspicion? Narrative? I mean, it's not a reality. The factories have been closed down since Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton pushed NAFTA on us, and whole factories were exported to our good friends in China. That's a narrative? That's a suspicious thing to say? Well, this is a problem when you have a person who's never worked a day in his life, like Barack Obama, who has never produced a product or a service that anyone ever wanted or needed, has never been tested in the marketplace in his whole life. He can talk like the academic fool that he actually is. That's all. It doesn't mean he's not a genius as an academic fool. He's a genius at threatening the domestic opposition. That's what he's a genius at, and he's a genius at rhetoric, which is to make you think he's saying one thing when he's saying another. Okay, when I come back, we're going to talk about the alleged green gangsters amongst us with two very, very savvy women. The Green Gangs of America on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
All right, we've all argued over energy for years now. We've heard the fights over the Keystone Pipeline. We've heard about the green gangsters making fortunes on solar plants that produce very little energy, but produce millions, if not billions of dollars for those in the business, who they get the money from the government and they go bankrupt and such. And there's a couple of women out there who have been working on this for a long time. One of them is with us right now, Christine Lakatos. Christine, please pronounce your name. I don't want to mispronounce it, please.
Lakatos. It's great to be with you, Dr. Savage. Thanks for having me.
Lakatos like potatoes.
Yeah, I like potatoes.
Okay. So, Christine, I stumbled upon your site over the years, and then I found out you're also a retired champion bodybuilder, a fitness trainer, an American Gladiators contestant, and you're a strong conservative, Christian, and concerned citizen. So how did you become a writer on this subject on energy?
Well, basically, I did some research work for Floyd Brown and Lee Troxler in their book called Killing Wealth. And then he used it in his book, and then I continued to gather more research, and it was like I had so much information that I'm like, what am I going to do with this? So I basically was a writer for Blog Critics Magazine, kind of talking about the Tea Party rise, Obamacare, and stuff like that. So I decided to just, start to present my information. And then I kept digging, and I did some work for Dr. Corsi at WorldNet Daily, and then Peter Schweizer in 2012, just kind of like a small amount of research. And they kind of went a different direction, so I had more information. And long story short, then reports Solyndra went bust, and I'm like, I told you.
By the way, where did the Solyndra $500 million end up? Did the government ever follow it up? I know the FBI seized the files of Solyndra shortly after Emperor Obama took over. Bankruptcy was declared. Where'd that money go? Did they ever recover it? Of course not, right?
No, not that money, no. And
who ran Solyndra? Who's the name of the people? Who were the people involved with Solyndra?
Well, the bundler was George Kaiser. And what's interesting is that all the loan guarantees, I don't know, if you go back in time to the 2009 stimulus package, basically they earmarked $100 billion for green energy. And a big chunk of it went to the loan guarantee program, of which they created another section. They had two sections of 1703 and the ATVM program. So they added a new section where they gave out about 26 loans to these green energy companies, of which we find out in 2012 that they were all junk rated. So this is how I really got going.
Well, how does this go on? Doesn't the FBI look into who's stealing the money? It's a facetious question. You mean Obama's FBI? Sorry. You mean Loretta Lynch's FBI? I kind of doubt it.
Before that, it was the other one. So basically, and what's interesting, and that's what really got me going, because they were junk bond status, and I'm like going crazy trying to get a hold of PJ Media and the Daily Caller and all these conservative sites. You guys have to report on this. Because there was an oversight a report that came out showing all the different the junk grade status by S&P and Fitch. And there it was.
But Christine, let me back it up for a bit. For the national audience listening to the Savage Nation right now, their brains are cooked on so many scandals under the emperor. Are there what are the largest alleged scandals in this green business right now? What's ongoing right now? Are there any congressmen or senators involved through family or nepotism, through backdoor deals that you know of, allegedly?
If you look at the whole DOE loan program, practically 90% of them went to Obama bundlers or high-ranking Democrats such as Harry Reid. And I can actually look at them and tell you exactly who they belong to. Like A-Bound was Pat Stryker. That went bankrupt. Alamosa is Goldman Sachs. Blue Mountain is Harry Reid, Nevada Geothermal.
Hold on. You mentioned the Spanish company several times. What is the name of it? Ala what?
No, that's Alamosa, but there's Abengoa, which we gave them over $3 billion. And they're in the middle of a huge bankruptcy because they're from Spain, right?
Oh, they're from Spain. Do they have any connections to American businessmen, lobbyists, or politicians' families?
The main two are Al Gore and the former governor of New Mexico, Bill Richardson.
Oh, my God. Mr. Clean, Bill Richardson. Now, one of your articles mentioned the Mojave solar plant as a green disaster. What's the name of that one?
Okay, that's called Ivanpah. And they
Ivanpah.
Yeah, they received $1.6 billion. And that is a real convoluted case because you have a variety of people involved, which the main players are NRG Energy, Bright Source Energy, and Google. And as you know, Google is a frequent White House visitor. They were the largest donor to President Obama, both in 2008 and 2012. The CEO, Eric Schmidt, was a former Obama advisor. You also had Sanjay Weigel, who worked for Vantage Point, who was an Obama bundler and then a DOE advisor. And then you have Bright Source Investors, who are Obama donors, Morgan Stanley, BP Alternative. They were Obama donors. And then NRG is like another huge direction I can go in. And
Christine, this is so complicated, and I read your stuff. It's so detailed. It's worthy of an encyclopedia of corruption.
Exactly.
Now, you have a 501c4 or a 501c3 corporation that does this?
501c3 through Marita Noon. And so, in fact, Marita Noonan, she's a energy columnist over at Breitbart, American Spectator, Town Hall, Red State. And she's awesome. We worked together for a little over 2 years. Because nobody would listen to me, Dr. Savage. I was so frustrated. I was like just bugging everybody.
Well, why are you so interested in this? Do you work for any oil companies? I know you probably don't, but I'm going to lay it out right here. They're going to say you probably get money from oil companies. That's false, correct?
No, I'm a fitness trainer by day and a political superhero by night. I'm just a regular, concerned citizen that fell upon this and became kind of obsessed with it. And then when I met Marita, she kind of funded it for a while, but, she has her own situation going on where she talks about all types of energy. This is just the green corruption that we started dealing with today.
So in your estimation, is the whole solar business simply a racket?
Pretty much. And if you and all you have to do is follow the money, and then you can connect the dots. Okay? And if you just follow, what's really frustrating, Dr. Savage, is that we are spreading the wealth to millionaires and billionaires through the green energy industry. It's insane.
How about Harry Reid? Wasn't Harry Reid involved in some of this through a son or something?
Well, no, he's directly involved in 5 of those DOE stimulus loans that I was telling you about. Solar Reserve, the Ivanpah project, which they were wining and dining him and having fundraisers for him and lunches and breakfasts and stuff like that. There's email interactions going on. Well, we have to save Harry Reid's campaign, and he needs to bring home the money to Nevada. And 4 of them are in Nevada and one's in California. It was Solar Reserve, Ormat, the Swipes transition line, and another one. Yeah, and
so here you have a sitting senator who you allege is on the take. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it looks bad. And when you have just a handful, maybe like 3 or 4 that went to a couple of your friends, well, when you have a whole portfolio where 90% of them are confirmed to donors of the President of the United States, as well as high-ranking Democrats such as Harry Reid, then you've got a pattern. Now, you can call it pay to play. You can call it, allegedly. But it's just...
Okay, are any Republicans involved in this alleged corruption as well?
I think they're complicit because they had several hearings back in 2012, Jim Johnson, Trey Gowdy, and I watched them all. And Jonathan Silver, who was the DOE, the head of the DOE, and, Stephen Chu at the time, blah, blah, blah. And they pressed them, and they had these grandstanding, and ISA was there, and I thought, well, what's going on? What's going to happen? And nothing happened. So in my case, they're just complicit in what took place with these DOE loans.
Well, you mentioned Trey Gowdy. I watched him embarrass himself with the Hillary hearings. I saw him capitulate completely. Is he another sellout at the end of the day, another fake conservative?
I'm not sure because he was my hero back in 2012. I mean, I literally watched...
Hold it. Well, that's a big story. Trey Gowdy looked like an up-and-coming, fire-breathing dragon for the conservative movement. And then something happened. Someone got to him. He got stalled on the Hillary hearings. And now you're telling me he was in on the game here with the energy hearings? So who is championing your cause, if anyone, in Congress? Nobody?
No, in fact, we had our Abengoa story on the House Finance Committee on their website. Look, Abengoa took money from the XIM Bank, and they have the XIM Bank in the middle of it, and they have Hillary Clinton people involved. They're giving to the foundation. The same people that we gave these loans to are giving money to the Clinton Foundation.
And why is this not coming up on the campaign trail, though?
Because it's 2012 news, and I remember even trying to contact some major outlets and say, well, it's not in the loop. Green energy is not popular right now. So the problem is that now it is because SunEdison is going bust, and we have Ivanpah that's having troubles, and then Abengoa...
I want the people listening, Christine, to understand what happens. A company gets $1 billion in federal loan guarantees of taxpayer money. They go bankrupt. They don't return the money, and people have made hundreds of millions of dollars personally. Isn't that what happens?
Yes. And the lobbyists behind them make the money, too, because they're cutting the deals. In these emails, we see them. McBee Strategic Counseling was in the middle of this Bright Source Energy deal from the very beginning.
Unbelievable. Well, look, all I can say is I have you on the show, Christine Lakatos. I hope I've said it correctly. It's a good Greek name, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is it a Greek? Thank God I called that right. And I take a look at your picture. I better be careful what I say because you're liable to hunt me down. I don't want that to go out. She knows where I live. I love that. Actually, nobody knows where I live, but mail comes here, but I don't actually live here. It's a mail drop. What's the last word you want to leave the audience with, Christine?
I just think that more attention needs to be drawn towards this green energy, what I call allegedly a scam or a scheme, whatever you want to call it. There's so many players involved, and it's not going away. Because even though President Obama will be leaving office, we know that Hillary Clinton is going to pick up the mantle and push this green energy stuff, not only because her Clinton Foundation is attached to these green energy, and we also just wrote a check $500 million to the UN climate racket. So I just think that it needs more attention, and that people need to reach out to their congressmen and senators. And
Christine, if Hillary wins, she's going to criminalize people like you and say that if you don't believe in global warming and you're a denier, you're conducting a criminal activity. You know that.
Well, they already started with 17 AGs and Al Gore. Under Loretta Lynch, they're trying to make it a crime to be a denier.
So why would this Loretta Lynch want to criminalize opposition speech? Isn't it to shut down those who are exposing corruption, in plain English?
I think so. I think partially that's it. And partially it's their religion. This climate change has become a cult for a lot of people. And what?
Christine, how do people donate money? I know you people work on a shoestring. You have almost no funding. And I wanted to give you exposure. I see Energy Makes America Great. I linked it up on michaelsavage.com, and it says links, act now. They can give money if they want to help. It's a 501c3.
Awesome, because, we don't have any donors. We don't have any supporters. In fact, I had to slow down my work because one of those files that you read takes me like 6 weeks.
Well, I could see the work. Look, as a writer and researcher, I can imagine how long it took you. All right, folks, go to michaelsavage.com. You'll find Energy Makes America Great. If you like what you heard today and you want to help these incredible women do their job of uncovering alleged fraud in the green rackets, this is the place to go. Christine, good luck and keep pumping iron. I'll be right back on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Hey, our Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust for wealth insurance, gold and silver. Call 800-BUYCOIN. It is the Savage Nation. That opens up a couple of lines, 855-400-7282, 855-400-SAVAGE. WABC, Joe, thanks for calling from New York City. What's on your mind, Joe?
Michael, this green movement, we have to also connect the dots in terms of its funding. What I found out is from the 1970s, OPEC and the Saudis have been funding this environmental movement under the table because they don't want the United States to compete with that resource. They want to sell us their resource.
So they are the ones who badmouth coal. They're the ones who badmouth oil. They're the ones who blocked the XL pipeline in order to not have competition. So they bought off congressmen, politicians, and think tanks. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. When Obama was in Saudi Arabia last week, I don't think he saw any windmills or wind-powered generators or solar power.
You know, this is interesting. So, in other words, our U.S. policy on energy is being dictated by a foreign dictatorship who buys the best lobbyists that money can buy, buys congressmen, best money congressman can buy. And now we're arguing over whether or not we should have a vote in America or let lobbyists dictate the outcome of a Truss-Crump situation. Do you see the craziness of that argument?
Absolutely, and this is what's been behind this thing. I mean, to say the environment has to be clean, absolutely, because there are toxic substances that cause cancer. But to say that we can control climate, human beings can control the spinning of the Earth or the revolution of the Earth around the sun is absurd.
Well, that's a separate story. Of course, we all want a clean environment. You got to be a fool to argue to the contrary. And I've been on the front lines of conservation movements since 1970. I'm very proud of it. I've saved rainforests, and I've saved animals who were near extinction. But that's a little different than lying about the science in order to push an agenda. That's the big difference. If I could buy a car that truly ran off the sun's energy, I would cash in my internal combustion engine tomorrow. But the technology is not here. And you don't get there by lying. You get there by doing basic research. And that may take 100 years to get there, by the way.
Exactly.
Not overnight. Joe, thanks for calling from New York City on this very important topic. I'm sending you a free copy of Do You Want Government Zero or Teddy and Me?
I have Government Zero. I bought that when it first came out. I'll take the Teddy and Me. That would be nice.
Do you have children or you have a woman in your life who liked the book?
3 millennial sons, and actually they're supporting Trump.
All right. Well, you got a copy of Teddy and Me, Confessions of a Service Human, going out to you. When I come back on the Savage Nation, when I come back, you'll have to see what I'm going to do because I haven't decided yet.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
If you want to be president of the United States, you got to get familiar with the United States. You got to spend time with Americans of all sorts and backgrounds in every part of our country. Don't just fly that big jet in and land it and make a big speech and insult everybody you can think of. And then go back, get on that big jet and go back to, your country club house in Florida or your penthouse in New York.
Well, this is the new laughing stock of the political season. Welcome to Hour 3 of the Savage Nation. Here is a woman who's knocking Trump for his wealth, his multiple properties, including across the nation, his beautiful home in Mar-a-Lago, which is a club, and his $100 million penthouse in New York. Now, of course, what about her? How about this woman herself? Doesn't she have multiple homes? Doesn't she fly in a private jet to her $300,000 speeches? Casting Trump as out of touch is new and opens up Clinton, who regularly travels via private jet and has multiple homes, to those who will criticize her own lifestyle. She and her husband, the former president, Bill Clinton, own sizable homes in Chappaqua and Washington, as well as a Manhattan apartment. They also have access to an apartment in Little Rock that is owned by Bill Clinton's presidential library. Now, why would they want to go to Little Rock? I don't know. You have a home in Chappaqua, New York. What are you going to do in Little Rock? Maybe it's the hot springs nearby. Who knows? Maybe it's good for her bones. So, it's the pot calling the kettle, whatever. It's crazy. But this raises a question. They both have private jets. They have multiple homes. He's probably richer than her. But they're both rich people. It'll be Clinton versus Trump. Why is it that if they're both uber wealthy, the average Joe Sixpack, relates to Trump and not to her? It's an interesting question. Why is it that Joe Sixpack, whose job has been sent overseas, and he doesn't know what country he lives in anymore, why does he trust that Trump will better represent his interests than Hillary Clinton? I opened the show up to that question. If you're one of those people, why would you vote for him instead of her? He's a rich guy, in other words. Shouldn't you, question him as well? The phone number is 855-407-2822. It's worth talking about a bit. I don't know that it's, a mind-bending question, but it's an intriguing one to me. He's a rich guy. She's a rich woman. And yet he's got traction with the blue-collar white guy in plain English. Let's say it like it is. 98% white people like him, I would think. Maybe 90, right? But why is that? Why is it that the disenfranchised I love the word working class white man trusts Trump and doesn't trust her? I think that's an intriguing question if you want to talk about it. I don't know if you do. But I have other topics that I'd like to get to, and apparently you don't want to get to them as well. I'd rather talk about rose fever right now than this. What if Donald Trump got up at a speech tonight before the primaries tomorrow, and he spoke very passionately for a long time, and then he said, you know what, I'd like to go for another hour, but I have rose fever. My allergies are very bad, so I'm going to just cool it right now, because that's what I have rose fever, the worst of my whole life. Used to call it rose fever. Now it's seasonal affective. Who knows? Allergies, this and that. I won't take anything anymore. No Allegra Zero. I can't use anything. Nothing. And please, I want to get the nut remedies now. Rub an ostrich feather across your left ear. Jump on your right foot 3 times in front of a full moon, Mike. And then take that honey that I sent you, that special honey laced with strychnine, for radio talk show hosts that I love. And those allergies will go away. You'll never suffer again from allergies, Mike. Just use that strychnine-infused honey I sent you. Never been this bad in my whole life. Every time it rains, you want to die the next week. So here we are in the Savage Nation talking about everything under the sun. If you want to talk about it, go ahead. Let's see. Wait a minute. I didn't get to the main point of hour number 1. Let me go back to that for a minute. It's on my Facebook page. Then I'll take your calls on this, because you didn't call on it. No one called on this. My opening monologue was this. It's on my Facebook. Cruz justifying nullification of popular vote via delegate system. And I wrote a paragraph. Some pseudo-conservative media figures are justifying nullifying the people's right to choose a candidate with the corrupt delegate system. Isn't the very Tea Party the personification of overthrowing such a rigged delegate system which bypasses the people's vote? ? Don't we all agree that congressmen and senators who deny the will of the people are corrupt? And the same with judges. How then can Ted Cruz pretend to be a people's candidate when he runs around the nation buying delegates and arguing against the popular vote? And since I put it up, I want to see, like 20, how many thousand people responded so far? 26,328 people were reached. And I see both sides of it. I can't understand people who justify denying a popular vote. How can you do that and say that you're one of the revolutionaries who want to take the government back for the people? Don't you understand that you're in conflict with your own statement? But no, you can't. This is why I refuse to talk very much about the Trues-Crump debate, because you can't talk to people. They don't understand what they're saying. And for those of you who don't understand me at all, I use bold caps on my Facebook because it's like sending you a telegram. What are you so concerned about the bold caps? So many of you are so idiotic that you make comments like, bold caps mean you're screaming at me. It doesn't mean I'm screaming at you. It means I'm sending you a telegram, Schmendrick. It's my website. It's my Facebook site. If I want to use bold caps to attract your attention, I use bold caps. What are you absurd with this? Bold caps mean I'm yelling. I'm yelling now. I'm not yelling with bold caps. I'm doing it to send you a telegram so you'll read it. But, okay, some people are so trapped in Marianne's rules of Facebook or something. Okay, let's go to the callers. Barbara, WDRC in Connecticut. Your answer counts. What's on your mind?
Hi, Michael. I look at Donald Trump as made in America. He is a true American, and he's authentic. And he has spoken on the campaign trail more than any other candidate, maybe in the history of the country. So he said some things. He's made some mistakes. We all do. But he is for this country. He's not for some other country. He wants us to be successful first, and he'll bring everyone else along with him. And
well, why? So wait, I asked why two rich people running for office. It'll be Hillary versus him. Pretty sure everyone knows that. Private jets, wealth, this and that, many houses. Why has he got such traction with the working class and she doesn't, is what I'm asking.
Well, because he did it himself. She flew all around the Middle East on our dime. Everything she has done has been on someone else's.
Well, wait a minute. He did start with some money from his dad, not a lot of money. I mean, in this day and age, his father did give him I didn't come from a poor family like I did. I don't mean dirt poor, but I'm saying he didn't come from the lower middle class. He had a good start in life. He went to the New York Military Academy. And while he was riding in a limo to the train station, Penn Station, I think, to go to the military academy in New York State, I was walking in the slush to the Q44A to go to Jamaica High School. I don't resent him for it. I wish that my father owned, that kind of wealth, but he didn't. So I had to make it, whatever I made in this world on my own. But I don't think that's a good enough argument. Why do you think he has traction, though, with the working class when he's not of the working class?
Because he has respect for the American people. And he's the only candidate that has said, we have got to get rid of Common Core and bring education back to the state.
All right, so let's talk about the issues. He's for building a wall. She's for busting the borders wide open. He wants to get rid of Common Core. She wants state-controlled educational systems. She wants to push the myth of global warming. He says it's not real. I mean, go down the issues. She wants to further deball the military. He wants to rebuild the military. I think those are the reasons. There are issues here. He would like to bring jobs back to America. She would like to continue to send jobs overseas. I think those are the issues, don't you, Barbara?
Absolutely. And that's why we are responding to him. I went to see him in Hartford, and I couldn't get in. There were so many people, and I've never been so happy to be in Hartford because there were about 15,000 people that all liked Donald Trump, and it was the best crowd, nicest people.
Well, he's been hammering one message over and over again. He's going to build a wall. I pressed him on it last Monday. He said, yes, I will build a wall. He said he will punish companies that go to Mexico to force them to stay here. He'll punish them economically to make them not leave. That's very clear. He said that he'll punish China for stealing our jobs by putting tariffs on their goods. People are understanding that there will be action from him that might, and I say might, result in a robustness in our economy that we haven't seen down on the level that we're talking about, not up in the high levels for the wealthy class, right? Okay, I'm sending you either Government Zero or Teddy and Me. Which do you prefer?
Oh, Government Zero, but I love Teddy, too. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, you got it. It's interesting. People are still asking for Government Zero and selling all over again because I think it's more relevant today than it was when it first came out last October. The chapters speak for themselves. And I don't generally read from the book, but maybe I ought to do it a little bit more. It's so well written. It's about my most classic of all of my political books, Government Zero. If you care to comment on any of these questions, I'm sorry. All lines are sold out. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Your Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust for tangible assets, gold and silver. Call 800-BUI-COIN. Okay, so we're going through a social upheaval in the United States. Of course, we know what's going on in Europe, and we know why it's happening. We know who did it. We know Hillary is responsible for it. If you look at the root cause, it was George Soros who orchestrated the Arab Spring. The architect of it, so far as I can tell, is Zbigniew Brzezinski, whose daughter works for MSNBC. They orchestrated the entire Arab Spring, which is one of the greatest humanitarian disasters in the history of the world. As a result, refugees have flooded from the Middle East and from Africa into Europe, overrunning the entire culture of most of these nation states. And so now you have the situation that's occurring in America magnifying itself. Not only have we been overrun from the southern border, but in addition to that, we're being overrun from China. We're being overrun by Middle Easterners who Obama insists on bringing in. Despite all evidence to the contrary, they are not peace-loving. They're by and large not peaceful. They're not coming here to work and learn English and become Americans. The opposite is true. In that sense, our nation has been hijacked by the emperor in the White House and the First Lady, who continue to put out the big lie. Day and night they put out the big lie that they're the victims. It's racism, it's thisism, it's thatism. At the end of the day, we're all going to suffer from this insanity of this concept of a universal one world government is what it comes down to. But it's too big a topic for a soundbite. But that's what's causing the social upheaval in America. How it ends is anyone's guess. I don't know how it ends. We pretty much intuitively know it's not going to end well for we in America. We pretty much know that the way this is going is, let's take it on a social level. First it was gay marriage. First it was leave gays alone. They're not hurting anyone. That's how that started. Love is love. You have no right to tell anyone anything. All right, fine. So I was, fine. Next thing was gay marriage. We said, wait a minute. Isn't marriage between a man and a woman? No, you're crazy. There's no marriage between a man and a woman. How dare you quote such an ancient, primitive, nativistic viewpoint? Marriage between a man and a woman? My goodness, how retrograde can you be? That was next. Next was the transgender bathroom issue. Next they'll be lowering the age of consent. Well, it's just love. I mean, if a boy 8 years old wants to make it with a man 50, well, that boy may feel like he's 49. Yeah, the man may feel like he's 7. And if he feels like he's 7, then he is 7. And if the boy feels like he's 49, he is 49 in San Francisco. So there should be no prohibitions on intergenerational love. That'll be the next thing. Say, I'm making that up. No, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's been pushing for lowering the age of consent of sexual activity between an adult and a child to the age of 14. That was 20 years ago when she ran the ACLU, okay? So that's where that's going. Where this ends is ancient Rome. Just look up Nero. Next time you have nothing to do, you'll see how it ends. Because a devolution of society never is good. It always ends badly. Just take a look at old Nero. You'll see where it goes. So now we in the middle are looking at all of this, and we see a lifeline being thrown out to us verbally by Donald Trump. Hillary is going to be business as usual. It's going to continue to devolve. Social upheaval will get worse. The war between the races and the sexes will be magnified because she is a divider, not a uniter. And while Trump has used division, you'll notice the division is against foreigners, not against individuals in this country. He's never spoken against liberals on this show or anywhere else. Have you noticed that? Have you ever heard him talk against Hillary Clinton? In fact, I tried to egg him on last Monday, and I said, how come you don't talk about her? Remember he said, I'll get to that when the time is right. Did you notice that? You notice he never talks about liberals in that same way she derides conservatives? So I'm pretty sure that he would be healthier for America than she would be. She's also a monster. This just came out on the Daily Beast. Hillary PAC spends $1 million to alter commentators on Reddit and Facebook. She's hired a slew of people, spending $1 million to alter any comments on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Instagram about her, to literally change things that people are saying. It says that the project is called Barrier Breakers Project, and it says that they boasted that they've already addressed more than 5,000 people who have personally attacked Hillary Clinton on Twitter. Do you know what this means? Do you know who created this? Longtime Hillary supporter and all-around insane man David Brock created this. Brock also founded the left-wing media watchdog website Media Matters for America, a longtime fascist front group, and I'll call it like it is, who has been after me for over 15 years. He is one of the most vile scum on the planet. In another time, he would have worked for Joseph Stalin very happily. In another time, he would have worn a gray suit and clicked his heels for Adolf Hitler, in my estimation. And he passes himself off as a liberal. He's a smear artist. And listen to this. If you think I'm making this up, Bernie Sanders supporters are seeing their words modified on Reddit. Someone wrote, "This explains why my inbox turned to cancer on Tuesday." Wrote user OK Arizi. "Been a member of Reddit for 4 years and never experienced anything like it. In fact, in all my years on the internet, I've never experienced anything like it." They spent $5 million of money to modify what you're saying on these social sites. There's Hillary Clinton.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
You know, talk radio is a very intriguing organism. It's an organism to me. It's like an animal out there that you have to massage cleverly in order to make it purr. It's like a pet. Talk radio audiences are like a pet. I don't mean you are individually, the individual listening, but the audience per se is like a giant animal. Think of it as like I'm an animal trainer. Anyone in the media is an animal trainer. And you, the audience, are this wild animal that sometimes can snap for no reason and kill you, destroy your career with one bite, go to sleep on you, or you can... There's so many different things that this animal can do. For 2 hours, I have opened up the possibility of talking about so many different great topics, and no one really cared. Maybe you were just, I don't know, just not interested. The minute I asked you this question of Trump versus Hillary, and why, although both of them are wealthy, he seems to be gaining traction with the disenfranchised blue-collar worker, so to speak, but not her. The lights have gone red hot. And you have to ask yourself, why are people calling on that? Now, you could say it's a simplistic question, and people are interested in a yes or no up-down vote, so to speak. And I understand that. It's a complicated world, and the nuances, not something that people really are interested in the mass media. I understand all of that, trust me. I'm capable of extreme nuance, which I reserve only for my dog, Teddy. He knows all of my nuances. He hears it in the middle of the night when I'm dreaming. Sometimes I think my dog knows what my dreams are, but that's a separate story. So here's another story just came out. You'll never believe this. Minutes ago, Cruz considering Fiorina for VP. What? Her? No. Yes. So listen to this. They're saying they're picking her. Her spokesmouth says he is vetting a number of solid candidates, and certainly Ms. Fiorina is absolutely one of them. She's one of the most talented business leaders of modern time, and she's been a great supporter. Wait a minute. I'm sorry to puncture the bubble here on Miss Fiorina. She's one of the most talented business leaders. Wasn't she thrown out of Hewlett-Packard? She was fired, for God's sakes. I think that might be one of the biggest gaffes I've ever heard of. She is one of the most talented business leaders of modern time. I think she means modern times. And I don't think the words modern times have been used since Charlie Chaplin. And I think anyone who uses the word modern time instead of modern times is not really living in modern times. And I think Carly Fiorina is probably a very poor choice because she didn't do very well on the campaign trail. And all she did was, I don't know, did she strike you as somebody you'd really want to be president? Let's say Cruz won by a fluke. He can't win, but let's say he did. And God forbid he got sick from eating Canadian food. Let's say he went back to his homeland of Canada and he ate too much. I don't know what they eat in Canada. I'm joking. I'm being facetious now. People get so upset. But let's say he gets food poisoning for 3 weeks and the vice president takes over. You think that she is going to be a great leader? He likely hopes she'll be able to woo female voters away from Clinton and to the Republican ticket. Woo? Woo! The only bigger mistake than picking Fiorina to run for Cruz would be if Trump picks the Alaskan, it's over. It's the end of the road. If I hear, I'm making a statement right now, if he is advised to pick her, Sarah Palin, I'm out. I'm not voting at all. I won't vote for her. She's used goods. It's that simple. I don't want to go backwards in time. I want someone new. There's a lot of better choices than her. So if anyone from the Trump campaign is listening, please listen to me. Do not pick the Alaskan. That's all I can say. I'd rather have an Alaskan cod fisherman for vice president than the Alaskan. Good luck to her. I wish her well, but no. No, we have to go back. And women don't like her. By the way, a little secret is, and here's the real thing. All the women who are gravitating to Trump are exactly the women who don't like Sarah Palin, incidentally. You don't know that. A lot of urban professional women who are attracted to Trump are repelled by Sarah Palin. Do you know that? They want if they're going to pick a woman, it has to be someone urbane. Okay? I don't want to get into negating her. I'm not trying to do that, but she's not the right pick. Let's put it to you that way. I've given you some choices last week, but we're too far ahead of ourselves right now. And we'll get to that once we get to that. Maybe a military person, maybe a returning military veteran who's also already a congresswoman would be good. Like we have some. I'd vote for her in a second. Anyway, let's go to the callers on the Trump versus Hillary trust factor. I don't know where to begin. I have so many callers now. Now I don't know who to pick. That's the problem. First I want callers. Then I get the callers, and I don't want callers. Because I know what you're going to say. Okay, let the people talk. I think that's the best thing to do. Now the question is which city to pick. I'm confused on which. No, normally I have an instant. My mind fires so quickly. I can decide which line to pick and why and get you up. Now I'm like bewildered. I saw callers from Alabama, San Francisco, New York. You know, from all points of the nation. And I don't know which one to pick. It doesn't matter. Because it's only an opinion like my opinion. It's only my opinion. So why do we have a call-in show if callers don't matter? Well, but you do matter. Now I'm going to say something you never expected, and you're going to now follow the bouncing ball. We've got pseudo-conservatives arguing that your popular vote should be nullified, and you should turn it over to superdelegates who should vote for you in various states. And then they say, well, that's the way it's been done since 1801. How dare you be shocked? Those are the rules. Rules are rules. So now let's take it down home to talk radio. Would you rather that I never take calls and I speak for you? Would you like to nullify talk radio as well and cut off all callers and only hear the host? Then would it be talk radio as you know it? No, it wouldn't be, would it? What would it become? It would become a monologue, a 2 or 3 hour monologue every day by host, which is more or less what it is anyway. But if there were no callers with opinions, some agreeing, some disagreeing, then what would be the point of your listening to call in? Remember how talk radio began. I want to go back in time for a minute. Way back when, in the early 90s, when this business was forming, it was certainly before that, I get it, but the populist movement of talk radio, which Rush really kicked off in a big way in the late 80s, to his credit, sadly to his credit, because, well, let's leave it at that. I wish him well. He kicked it off in a big way in the 80s. Now, you knew that by that time, if you sent a letter to the editor and you had a conservative opinion, it would most likely never see the light of day. Whether it was a local yokel newspaper or a national paper, you never got your letter published. You had no way to address your political opinions, right? But all of a sudden, talk radio, now you have a place to listen and call in. You get angry, you get happy, you want to chime in. But you have a place to instantly get your message out, right? So now what happens if your vote, meaning your voice, is suddenly cut off and someone says, listeners to this show, I'll tell you what, we're not going to have any callers anymore. I have 7 superdelegates called fake callers that we have created for you. And they're all around America. One is Joe from New York. One is Martha from KLIF in Texas, and so forth and so on. And don't call anymore. We're just going to go around to our super callers. Right, Robert? We're going to go to Super Caller Joe in New York, then Super Caller Martha in Dallas, and Super Caller Bill in San Francisco, and they're going to speak for you because that's the way it is. Those are the rules. I just made up the rules. No more callers ever to the talk show. Only super callers. That's exactly what you're voting for when you say super delegates should trump the voter. How many different ways do I have to explain to you what you're saying? Why is it so hard for you to understand that you're nullifying your own freedom if you keep saying that's the system, that's the way it was? At least that's the way it looks to me. It's one man's opinion. I'm not telling you to agree with me, but I am showing you with ironclad Aristotelian logic what you're actually saying. It's that simple. Why argue with it? You can argue all you want, but you're not going to convince me that telling me that I shouldn't vote is as good as me voting and some super delegate moron votes for me. How can that make sense to you? All right. Now we'll go to the super callers on the Savage Nation. They're all real, by the way. Every caller you hear on the show is real. Not one of them has been staged or rehearsed. Every one. There are people, by the way, have staged callers, I heard, in the business. I don't know who they are. I heard about it. They have stooge callers who call in the show on a regular basis. They're actually paid to call in. Did you know that? It's hard to believe, but it's true. I swear on a Bible right now that none of my callers are staged callers. Never. I did it once in my life, and that was when I put out a demo tape back in 93 or 4. I had 3 or 4 staged callers. I bribed them all with a cup of coffee and a piece of cake after we did the demo tape. One of the stage callers was my friend Frank, who I haven't seen since. Another stage caller was my wife, Janet, who I haven't seen. No, well, I hope she's not listening. No, I'm saying there were people who knew, but we made it sound like it was call-ins for a demo tape. They were like super callers, delegates, in other words. Okay, it's the Trump thing. You want to talk about this, really? Why I asked that question? One caller before it, Barry on KSFO, about the whole way.
I called. I was struck by that lady, Christine, who was talking about the solar scandals, and right under the nose of everybody in San Francisco, I'm the same way. I did a hobby look at and did a lot of research, personal.
Okay, could you cut to the chase? Give us the disclosure instantly. What did you find?
$1 a year is mismanaged and laundered.
How much homeless money is spent in San Francisco? How much a year?
Over $1 billion, $1.2 billion or so.
In San Francisco on the homeless situation?
You got multiple agencies collecting huge amounts of money to do nothing but make work.
Yes, and anyone who says, get the bums off the streets and put them in a work setting, they call you a fascist because they're making a fortune off the bums in the streets. Isn't that what's going on here?
No, what's going on here is money laundering.
All right, that is what's going on. Again, no. After saying yes and summarizing it for him, he'll say no. Okay, that's the way. That's where we should get super delegate callers. I could give him a script, and then that could sound like all the other shows. Hello, Mike. I really agree with you. Long-time listener, first-time caller, mega dittos. No, I can't come up with that. Something else. Mega savages. No, mega teddies. Mega teddies, Mike. You're the king of talk radio. I really love you. I don't know how in the world you get up and look at yourself in the mirror without worshiping your own image. Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. I have a special mat I could sell you, or a special Savage mat. We have the Savage socks today. We have a special on Savage sandals, in case you want to do a Moses interpretation while walking across the Palm Desert area. For those of you who want a wife beater T-shirt, we have a special Savage wife beater T-shirt. Buy one, get 6 free. For those of you who are in the Mormon faith, come on, don't get mad. I'm just joking around here. Now the Mormons started a protest movement against me. The Mormons against Savage for blasting the Did they still do that? Someone said to me Mormons are allowed to have more than one wife. Is that true? Is it still legal for them? Who would want that? We're not living in the 1700s anymore where women listen to you. What would you want 6 women in the house for? How in the world would a man think? Let's forget it. That's too complicated. A woman, what do you, women? It's like a cat, chattel, a women. He has 4 wives. What are wives? They're human beings. You think 4 human beings are going to listen to you in this day and age unless they're morons? and have no brains and no life for themselves? What woman wants to be in a house with 3 other women and one idiot running around with a beard who treats them like well, whatever. I can't say it. It's a family show. But now I hear there's a certain religion coming in with that viewpoint. Oh, yeah. Oh, certainly acceptable. All the progressives who hated Mormons for having multiple wives are now suddenly, oh, yes, that's a cultural thing for those folks from the Middle East. Oh, yes, it's in their culture. Well, what about the mutilation of young girls with clitorectomy? That's fine. That's their cultural belief system. But I thought you're against hurting. Well, you see, the whole thing is a crock. It's all about money and power and manipulation. And it's a matter of abusing people by making them guilty and manipulating them at the end of the day. Well, anyway, that's one man's opinion. I'll be back in a moment.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com, the only company I trust to protect my wealth with gold and silver. Call 800-BUICOIN. Gene Genie means. I don't even know what Don't Call about. I'd rather talk about rose fever. So anyway, as this show winds down to its natural conclusion, I want to read a Facebook comment from Kara Nielsen Hall. She says, my dad introduced us kids to the Savage Nation over 15 years ago. We would listen as I traveled to work with him on occasion. We would laugh so hard we cried, especially as Dr. Savage read from his literary masterpiece on air, namely Political Zoo. Can't wait for the new book on Teddy to add to my collection. I also thought the good doctor would find this piece on fatherhood refreshing and inspiring. Keep fighting the good fight. Love, one of the 21 Savagettes. Thank you, Kara. You know, and that struck a chord with me, the issue of fatherhood. Because I'm thinking about this election in terms of fatherhood and fathers. And by the way, that's one of the appeals of Trump, a strong fatherly figure. In many ways, you're not going to believe what I'm about to say. He's the father that many of us wish we had had. Do you know that? Oh, I know he's been divorced. I understand that. But unfortunately, so have a lot of men in America been divorced. So I don't think that's a strike against him. Didn't everyone want kind of a charismatic, good-looking, rich father? I mean, be honest with yourself. Would you want Hillary as a mother? Let's put it the other way. If you had a choice, would you want Hillary as a mother or Donald Trump as a father? If you want me to get into the psychology of why Trump may be more appealing than you could ever imagine, there's your answer. And there's another element to this question that I think I'll have to explore in another day, which is, what archetype does Obama represent? Trump represents the archetype of the powerful, dominating father, period. And America wants that, especially one who is nationalistic. What does Obama represent? Does he represent a classic father figure? No. He represents something pharaonic, something Egyptian, something ancient rather than current, and something untrustworthy rather than something you can trust. And that, my friends, may explain in part, on another level, the rise of Mr. T. Well, that's it for the day. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the evening. And tomorrow, with God's will and your listenership, I shall return right here on your local affiliate.